You're now tuned into Thorough Black Talk with Tad, Keisha, and Ashe. Every Thursday, 8 to 10 p.m. Don't forget about our sister station, Constructive Talk Radio, Tuesdays, 8 to 10 p.m.
Greetings, family. Welcome to another edition of Thorough Black Talk with your sister Keisha, your brother Tad, and brother Ashe SJ will be here in a second, working our kinks behind the scenes. But we're excited to have you with us this evening. Family, we got a power pack program for you tonight. We got the brother, the history HITMAN, coming in the building. We're going to discuss some monumental moments in Black and African history. And so we want you all to join us, engage in the conversation, put your questions and comments in the chat. And my brother Ashe SJ might have the phone call up for you a little later. But I'm glad to be alive. Another Thursday. I hope you all glad to be alive. What's up, Sister Farnesta? I see you, girl. We trying to stay out of trouble and make some money at the same time. I hope you ain't lose a lot this week. I most certainly didn't. I most certainly did not. You know, sometimes you got to invest for the long haul. All of these shortfalls and wins, you know, I'm not a day trader. So, you know, for those of you who are in that game, you got to be careful because the market is a little volatile right now, especially when you have a transition between presidents. You know, that's how the market can be. But we're not going to worry about that. We're just going to keep pushing forward and doing our thing. So like I said, family, tonight we're going to discuss a lot of Black facts and history. Tonight, I'm glad to have you all with us. Tonight's program, we're going to dedicate it to Brooklyn's own Ollie McLean, Sister Ollie McLean, founder of the Sankofa International Academy in Brooklyn. Not only was she the founder of Sankofa International Academy, but she was involved in a lot of Brooklyn. And believe it or not, she played a monumental role in the excavation of our ancestors in Lower Manhattan with the African burial ground. So we want to give our kudos to her and also to our brother, James Padnard. James Padnard family was monumental with a lot of works here in the city of New York. Now, I know a lot of you heard about, you know, the Central Park case and those brothers who were forcibly incarcerated receiving a monument, a menial, if you will, reparation from the city of New York. Well, brother James Padnard, aka Champ, Harlem's own, he made sure that all of the signatures, petition signatures, so that those brothers can get some financial compensation were done. James Padnard worked tirelessly for that, not just here in New York, but also we worked together to get petitions signed for those brothers down in South Carolina during one of the Gullah festivals. And so we want to give our love and honor to him. And also, if you ever watch the History Hitman's program, Community Cop, which airs on YouTube, when those brothers open up their program, they always say where, real talk and truth occurs. Well, they got that slogan from none other than James Padnard. So we want to give our salute to them in their work. And I know that they continue to watch over me, and I appreciate that. So that's what we're going to dedicate tonight's program to. Yes, sister. That's right, sister. I hope you didn't lose nobody. You better not. You got to be in it for the long haul, Shout out to brother Edie. Good evening. Yes, it's time for that education for real. Sister Latasha, nice to have you with us. We're going to shout out all of our family. Shout out to Monty and Joyce. I know they in on the check-in. Dr. Filet on the check-in. Sister Tara on the check-in. We had a great chat earlier this week talking about the new political pundits that are coming up here in New York City locally, and we had to converse on some things. Yes, my brother, salute to our ancestors. They continue to guide us. So before you came in, Brother Tad, I was saying that, you know, tonight's program I wanted to dedicate to Sister Ollie McLean.
Oh no, I heard everything, sis. I
Okay.
was having issues with you know, the other camera, so I had to revert back to the old camera.
See, Brother Tad got a new phone, and you know, he a little up there in age, so he can't figure things out real quick.
Yeah, I can't. I need the kids now, and they all grown up, so like, come help your dad out. But no doubt, sis, I've been on from the gate, you know, just trying to figure it all out. Like you said, you know, working out some things behind the scenes. So I thought you saw me struggling.
I did. I actually did. I ain't gonna turn the mic on and start laughing at you. I was like, let him go ahead. Let him go ahead. Let him do his thing. You know, I ain't gonna say nothing. Be cool. Be cool.
Nah, it's all good. But shout out to the family. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to everybody. But continue, sis.
Yes, and for all of you who had so many questions for Dr. Arthur Lewis, we're going to have him come back on again so that you all get a chance to answer or ask all the questions that you wanted to ask. Some I was able to answer, others I cannot. So we'll have him on again. But don't forget, family, you know, while you in lockdown or trying to stay away from whatever it is they got going on out here, and you don't feel like, you know, going to the gym, you can check out my brother Tad, Better Days Ahead Fitness, and he'll work out a schedule for you and a meal plan. So
yes.
Hit him up. Don't forget to follow my brother Ashe SJ on Instagram and Facebook, Solid African, so you can be abreast of all the community events that he is a part of, in particular pushing Black independent businesses in New York and throughout the country. Again, shout out to Team SWAP, always in the building, baby. We're going to hang out this weekend. We getting our own Galentine thing. That's what we do. So we're going to hang out this weekend. So I'll see my sisters Saturday, to be exact. Sunday? Saturday. Saturday. Tomorrow night, I will be on Brother Yomi's show. We're going to have a panel discussion on the movie about Fred Hampton. So I'm excited about that. I can't wait to get into that. And then the first Monday in March, I will be with my sister Marcia and her group. And we're going to have a panel discussion. It's going to be phenomenal. So we got a lot of things in the work, always moving. What's up, my brother Magnetic Peace Tyson? That's my brother from another mother right there.
Yes.
Love chopping it up with the brother. Love chopping it up with him. You know, Brother Peace, you know, he got a lot of knowledge, and he be killing it on Facebook. And I love what you're doing, brother. Keep sharing that information, because we have a lot of our people who really don't know, Brother Tad, a lot about our history. So tonight, like I said, we're going to discuss some great monumental times within our history. There's my baby brother, Ashe SJ, in the building, brother, working out the kinks.
Yeah.
Working out the kinks. How you doing, Ashe?
Yeah. What's the word, family? You now tune in to Thorough Black Talk. My big brother, Taz, sister Keisha. I'm feeling great. I can't complain, man. You know, I'm hearing a lot of people in my neighborhood, you know, people I work with, a lot of people still falling victim to this virus thing, man, you know, so it's crazy. But, you know, I'm keeping my spirits up, keeping my energy up, stay on my fitness game, you know, and, you know, I'm just trying to stay right, man. You know, these energy vampires, they try to get you. They tell you get the vaccine. If you don't get the vaccination and all of that, then you gonna get it. But you know me, I'm staying clear from that. But I'm doing great. I'm really energized because, you know, we got the History Hitman coming on again. And I love when he goes in his element and just talks history, you know, Black history to be specific, because he has so much jewels from just studying for so long. It's really going to be a great show, a great talk. You know, if you guys have any questions, always remember you can leave them in the comment section. We are reading the comments, so we will share them and, you know, get your questions in. But yeah, you know, Black History Month, it's a special time. You know, like I said, we talked about it before. Some people, they hate on it. You know, they say it's the shortest month of the year, February. Why they gave us February, you know, but it's a lot of history behind that, you know, and if you just study your history and study your facts, we'll be better people going forward, you know. So I'm just really excited, man. I know y'all be bouncing a lot of ideas off, and, you know, here and there, I pick up some things from y'all. I pick it up from the guests. I pick it up from the people in the audience that's listening, you know, and this is a community. This is really a village that we got going on here. So we just up here to spread the information and learn ourselves, family. But this is what makes us better, coming together. And, you know, all of us should just remember to reflect, you know, set some time aside to reflect the ones that came before us. You know, just like we are the warriors that are doing the work now in the present day, we would want somebody to appreciate the work that we did. Nobody wants to really go and fight this battle. It's a lonely battle. It's a lonely struggle, you know, and we do it for the love of our people. But if the people ain't going to show the love, you know what I'm saying, then, you know, we feel like we fighting this and we are a soldier in a war by ourselves, you know. So, and a lot of us don't have the heart or the bravery, you know, the bravado to really do this battle themselves. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people sit back and they just want somebody else to do the work. All right, well, you got some warriors that's doing the work now. You know, let's actually pay homage and, you know, show respect when it's due. You know, let's just be grateful for that. So, you know, I'm excited to talk about some of the things that don't really go talked about. You know, when we say Black History Month, you know, the first thing they teach us, especially if you're in the education system, whether you're a teacher or whether you are a student, you know, or anything like that, the first thing you think about when you hear about Black history, what do you think? It's like civil rights, you know what I'm saying? That battle, you think about Reconstruction, that era, or even before civil rights, you talk about slavery, things of that nature, right? Like that's the first thing they try to brainwash us with when it comes to Black history. But we know, I mean, I know us up here on this platform know that Black history don't begin with slavery. But even with, you know, the times post-slavery and things of that nature, or even during slavery, us as African, you know, African people from the diaspora, we have been doing some amazing things, even when we were in positions, you know, where we didn't have freedom. You know what I'm saying? We've been doing things that go unspoken of. You know, a lot of our enemies have taken credit for some of the things that we've done. You know what I'm saying? We were in the background giving advice to some of them, telling them what to do. And next thing you know, they go out and get awards for this stuff. I remember I watched a movie. It's called Something the Lord Made. I don't know if y'all ever saw that movie. It's a great movie. It's actually the leading actor in the movie is the rapper Mos Def. You know, he's kind of known to be like a conscious rapper. And Mos Def is basically he's the lead actor, but it's about Vivian Thomas. Vivian Thomas is he was a medical student, but it just so happened that during the Great Depression, he lost what him and his father were saving up to put him through med school. So he couldn't continue med school. So he just went to work for this white doctor, a surgeon. Eventually, the surgeon kind of trained him a little bit to be his assistant. So Vivian Thomas is a medical assistant, but he knew so much that he was giving advice to the surgeon. So he was telling the surgeon what to do. If you watch the movie, there's plenty parts in the movie where the surgeon is performing surgery and he looks back over his shoulder at Vivian Thomas and says, Vivian, is this right? Did I do this correct? So he's literally telling the surgeon how to perform surgery. And then the surgeon goes off. In the movie, you can see it too, but this is history. It's based on a true story. Vivian Thomas, look it up. The surgeon goes off to get all of these awards for the most successful, I think they call it like the blue baby syndrome or something like that, where babies weren't getting enough oxygen or something like that. He goes on and collects awards for doing this successful surgery. Meanwhile, Vivian Thomas, the black man that doesn't have an actual degree because he lost all his money, he couldn't afford to go to med school, but he still knew all of the knowledge. He's the one that actually taught the surgeon how to do the goddamn surgery. You know what I'm saying? So there's so many cases of us as black people in our greatness, performing and doing so many amazing things that we don't get the credit for it, you know? So it's up to us really to push forth that, to, you know, to like make that the standard of us promoting us supporting us appreciating ourselves. You know what I'm saying? Us honoring us, and also the ones that have came before us. We really got to set that precedent, because nobody else is going to do that. And if they do, they trying to put their own spin on it, just like they do with all our other leaders. They try to turn Malcolm X into something that he's not. They use Martin Luther King all the time for their agenda. You know what I'm saying? So the only ones they're going to put in front of you is if they try to put their own spin on it. So we have to really, as warriors and scholars and things of that nature, have to really tell the next generation, like, look, do you know this person? Vivian Thomas. Say their names. Say their ancestors' names, the people that done this work before, so we can keep their spirit alive. Because otherwise, if we're not saying it, we're not saying their names and teaching them, then it dies. Then the work dies. Then you got some white person out here with dreadlocks saying that locks started in Greece or something. You know what I'm saying? Because we not carrying on our traditions and telling them that, no, locks started in not even Jamaica. Locks started in Kemet. Probably even before that empire. They had locks. Baba Ashwa Kwesi showed you they had locks on the damn pyramid walls. You know what I'm saying? So like, it's up to us to really carry forth that legacy and also create our own legacy, man. Right now is history. Today is history. So the people that saying, oh, Black History Week, Black History Month, it's February, it's too short. Well, listen, some of y'all ain't doing nothing in February, March, April, May. Y'all ain't doing a goddamn thing. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you're going to put some work forth in whatever way that you can, like I said, we know everybody is not warrior class, but you still a warrior of some sort. You might not be on the front lines of this battle, you know, but you're going to be on the front line of some other battle. There's a lot of other battles out there. But you got to do whatever you can, whatever skills you have, and whatever is in your hands, you got to use that to benefit our race, to benefit our people. You know what I'm saying? And if you're not doing that, I don't want to hear you complaining about, oh, February is 28 days and they gave us the shortest month. Because remember, last week on the show, I told y'all, they didn't give us a short month. Because I think last week I made a mistake. I said because it was independence. That's why they chose it. But they didn't choose it. Actually, Carter G. Woodson, he chose February because it was actually coinciding with Frederick Douglass's birthday and Abraham Lincoln's birthday. So at the time, you know, Black people were celebrating Abraham Lincoln because he, you know, so-called freed the slaves. We know that's not true. But we were taking up anything we could get. Hey, he signed it. He pushed it. All right, we taking it. So Black people back then, not having all the details, you know, we were supporting Abraham Lincoln and honoring him because of what he did. And Frederick Douglass as well. You know, all of the things that he did for Black people back then. So I believe Frederick Douglass' birthday is actually the 14th. And most of y'all out here, all y'all know on the 14th is Valentine's Day. That's the 14th, right? Or is it the 17th? I don't even know. I think it's the 14th. But all of y'all celebrating February is Valentine's Day, not even knowing. If I'm not mistaken, the same day, February 14th, is Frederick Douglass's birthday. And I think it was the 12th was Abraham Lincoln's birthday. So that's the reason why Carter G. Woodson chose February. A Black man, mind you, chose February to be Black History. Well, actually, it was called Negro History Week back then. Now it's Black History Week, Black History Month. And a lot of, honestly, if we talking about Carter G. Woodson, like, he is really unofficially, unspoken, one of the founders of the Black conscious community. A lot of y'all say y'all conscious, y'all in the conscious community, right? And y'all don't want to hear y'all talking about y'all in the conscious community and y'all don't know who Carter G. Woodson is. Because if it wasn't for him creating a Black Negro History Week, Negro History Week went on to inspire a lot of these African book clubs, African history clubs. You know what I'm saying? Like the debates, all of that was inspired by Negro History Week. So all of the debates in the conscious community, y'all need to pay homage to Carter G. Woodson because he's one of the unofficial founders that's not spoken of this conscious community thing. You know what I'm saying? And then I believe it was I think it was 1970, they actually changed it from Negro History Week to Black History Month. So now we celebrate it. I think who was it? Was it Ford, the president that actually I think it was Gerald Ford or something like that. I looked it up. They said he was the one who actually established it as a official Black History Month is February. So, we just got to make sure that we are really studying our history and not just saying these things that, just sound good. All people set a precedent for us. And it's up to us in the present day to remember that Black history is now. It continues every single thing that we do, whatever we react to, the way that we react to it, the way that they try to program us, the way that the wool is pulled over our eyes, the way that we are not seeing through that and then we being reactionary. That's all going down in history too. That's all Black history as well. So let's stay wise. Let's study the ones that came before us, study their mistakes so we can get better and not repeat those same mistakes, man. Black History Month is an amazing time for us to reset, rewind, reprogram our minds. You know what I'm saying? Because if y'all wanted to do away with it, then please give me something better. Don't take Black History Month away and then you don't have nothing to replace it with. That's something that we got to stop doing, taking things away when we don't have something better to put forth in front of the people. So, I'm just really excited. I know we got our guests about to come on. I'm feeling great, man. But Tad, Keisha, which I want to chop it up before we bring our guests in, because I know time is going to fly by.
For real. And just to go back, when you're talking about, just getting our health and stuff together, I had taken a fall down a flight of stairs about 3 weeks ago. So, my leg was jacked up. So finally the swelling and everything went down. I got the approval back in the gym this week every day so far. So, when you take a break off, and get back into, you feel it.
Yes, you do.
You feel it. So, but I keep pushing forward. And during this month, I've been listening to a lot of lectures as I work out this week, just filling my mind and filling my spirit with the great ones who came before us. So I'm glad you touched on that, Brother Ashe. A shout out to Brother Ray. My condolences again to you and your family, my brother, on losing your brother. Always with you on that. And thank you, Sister Farnessa, for checking out the Brooklyn Mackey study group. I'm glad you think I did a good job. But it's more to come. It's more to come. Just hold on and buckle your seatbelts. That's all I got to say. Brother Tad.
Yes, ma'am.
What's on your mind, brother, before we bring our guest up in here?
No, and I'm just enjoying the conversation. And I forgot that, and I'm glad Ashe brought it up, Frederick Douglass' birthday, his recognized birthday being February 14th, because in the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass, he said that's a date that he chose because during the time he was born, they didn't even record our ancestors' birth dates. He just knew it was in the proximity of that time, and I forgot that he did pick a day, but when you read his book, he talks about he didn't know when he was born, and even speaks on the few times that he met his mother, that he saw his mother. One of the favorite parts of the book, though, and when my son, he's 30 now, but when he was about between 5 and 8 years old, he read the book, the children's versions of the book. And his favorite part is when Frederick Douglass beat up Mr. Covey. Now, Mr. Covey was the overseer known for breaking rebellious ancestors. I hate using that term, slave, but our ancestors that were rebellious, Mr. Covey was known for breaking them. So Frederick Douglass was probably like 17 or 19 years old. And Covey tried to put his hands on Frederick Douglass, and Frederick Douglass put the beats on him. So after he beat him up, he was certain that he was going to get murdered for beating Mr. Covey. But he said his ego was so fragile that he dared not tell nobody that Frederick Douglass beat him up. So needless to say, Frederick Douglass didn't get murdered because nobody knew that he beat Mr. Covey up, since Mr. Covey had this reputation of being a breaker, So as you was talking about it took me back to that time, when I read that book and thought about, all the intricacies of Frederick Douglass' life that he recorded. Because I think it's very important as we talk about our ancestors, as we talk about Dr. King, Malcolm X, Harriet Tubman, these people have autobiographies and biographies out. A lot of our information about our ancestors come from secondhand sources of people who don't have our best interests at heart. So I think it's imperative that we do our own independent study and research. That way we could grab a full grasp. Because in the beginning of my education and my journey and development into our history, I thought Dr. King was soft, thought he was a sellout. But as I got older and learned and read Dr. King's books and read papers and articles that he wrote, realized he was one of the bravest we ever had, you know. But in my early development, that's me listening to other people about our ancestors. And even Black folks was talking negative about Dr. King. So it's important that we all do our own due diligence, you know what I'm saying, and peel back the layers to our own level of understanding so that we can move forward and properly. So when we share this information with those that come behind us, we could give them a proper perspective and teach them how to think for themselves. Don't even take our words for it, because maybe they'll get something out of the readings and writings that we may have missed. And I'll step off my soapbox.
Yo, Tad.
Facts.
Yo, Tad. That's deep, bro. Yo, that's crazy, man. I'm glad you shared that, bro, because if you think about what you said, right, that same thing is happening right now. That's what these devils do. You said Frederick Douglass beat up the slave master.
Well, he wasn't the master. He was a breaker, because I hate calling them masters too.
He beat up the breaker. Well, the person that had a reputation. He beat up the person that had a reputation for breaking people.
Yeah.
And this person, this white person, didn't even share the story. Now that's deep, because that's what's happening right now. And what I was just talking about is how they rewrite history.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like, even if Frederick Douglass never did anything else in his life, if he was known in history for being a Black man that whooped the buck breaker's ass, just that right there would have been enough in those times to probably start a goddamn insurrection. You know what I'm saying? But that's
part of Frederick Douglass they seldom talk about. But he wrote it in his book, The Narratives of the Life of Frederick Douglass, written by himself.
And that's exactly what they do throughout history, throughout time. How many cases have you seen where things have happened and Black people been in their greatness, and what do? What's that saying, Ty? They say the story of the lion will never be told until I forgot. They say the lion.
The story of the hunt will always glorify by the hunter.
It's glorified by the hunter.
So
that's exactly what they did. So our Black history is whitewashed. All of our greatness is whitewashed, and you got to get real deep and really be about that life to find the true history, or you got to have a griot in your family that passed these stories down orally, like we traditionally did, to get some truth. You know what I'm saying? Because otherwise, CNN, all the news media, you know what I'm saying? Even with what I said earlier about Carter G. Woodson, when they first created Negro History Week, that first year, they said it was lukewarm. Like, it wasn't even popping like how they wanted it to be. But Carter G. Woodson was grateful because it was still very impactful. But the second year, they decided that they're going to keep doing it year after year after year. But it wasn't. It was really because of the Black media. And also, they said that the Department of Education at the time, they had some Black officials, and they were having the teachers hand out pamphlets, and also in the churches. So the teachers and the Department of Education and the churches were very instrumental of helping the buzz and the momentum of Negro History Week grow, because they were handing out literature. So it's really up to us, you know, to push forth our own history and our own narrative. And that's the way that we really gonna control our Black African mind, and then make things manifest in the physical plane too. So that's deep. I'm glad you shared that, bro. That's crazy right there, man.
No doubt.
For real. And, you know, family, if you can get down to the city of Baltimore, you can visit the Frederick Douglass Museum down there. Actually, it was his property turned into a museum. I love going to museums because I get to find things out. You know, get you a backpack and just get moving. You know, or somebody giving a bus trip or whatever, make sure you get down there. And also the Great Blacks and Wax Museum in the city of Baltimore. Even where you reside, you know, check and see if there are any museums where you live. You know, I got a message from someone who I've known all my life, from Brooklyn, New York. Did not know until last month that there was an African burial ground museum here in the city in New York, Lower Manhattan. I think it's 290 Broadway to be exact.
Right by in the financial district too.
That's right. So I'm always in there. There's a picture of me last year. You know, I took some cousins there last summer to check it out. And definitely, if you can, find a museum. Also in DC, you know, there are museums there. There is the African American Civil War Museum that we've attended a lot. And if you can get a lecture there by Dr. Harry Jones while you're there, you're getting a great treat. Because oftentimes in mainstream media, they like to whitewash, if you will, a lot of the atrocities that happened to us in our enslavement in this country and abroad. And so when you go to museums or you check out various sites, you can see exactly what we went through. Like this image I have here of shackles. You know, just look how thick and sturdy these shackles were, are rather.
The original
and
handcuffs.
could you imagine? Say that again, brother.
The original handcuffs.
You understand what I'm saying? And as a matter of fact, it's funny you say that because, you know, you had a lot of Irish and Scottish indentured servants. Some was at that time.
The real slaves.
Facts. But once they were given a white status, they became the overseers. Yes. In fact, the Scottish here in this country was some of the most brutal to Black people. In fact, when you look up the Jim Crow laws, you know, James Crow out of South Carolina, you had Frank McCord out of South Carolina, John B. Kennedy, you know, y'all like the Kennedys, that name. But anyway, you know, these people were horrendous. As a matter of fact, you know, they founded the Ku Klux Klan. You know, once they got their certified whiteness, because everyone wasn't white because you had pale skin.
Right.
You were given
Anglo-Saxons.
Yes, sir.
British
yes,
sir.
Yeah. Yes, sir. And so once they were given that white status, they became very, very brutal. In fact, a lot of them performed the minstrel shows. They had makeup companies, if you will, to sell makeup. You know, hold on. I think I got a picture in here because you gotta see this for yourself. That's why I like to travel. I like to get this information right to you. You know, this is the kind of ads that you would see in a newspaper. You know, N-word makeup without blacking, complete with hat on and off in a minute. No burnt cork muscle, nothing. I mean, this is the type of insults that they had for our people. And if you don't know your history before you got here, while you were here, what we built here, a lot of us don't even want to know about history because we've been so detached from who we are. So that's why it's important that we have with us tonight the history hitman himself. We got Mike Grace coming in, the history hitman, but he himself made history. Believe it or not, when he ran for the Freedom Party, that was historical. The first African-American man to run for mayoral candidacy on a black-led and black-financed independent party, which was the Freedom Party. And shout out to Michael K. Lloyd, Michael Lloyd, who's standing to the right of him or left, I don't know, but he ran for the public advocate. You know, shout out to Brother Blake, Brother Leonard, Sister Fidel in the back. You know, we had a lot of soldiers on the ground, and this was historical. And no one has written this story, so it's important that we tell our own story. So I thought I would just throw them photographs in there. And as we bring Mike on, I don't know if he heard earlier, but you know, we dedicated tonight's program, Brother Ashe, to two monumental trailblazers, if you will, in the city of New York during our time. And you look at these big moments in history, like when it comes to independent African-centered education. You know, tonight's program is dedicated to Sister Ollie McLean, who also had a candidacy for the congressional seat in New York City. So we dedicate that to her. And like I said, when you watch Community Cop, and on the intro, you will hear Brother Noel Leader say, "This is where real talk and truth occurs." You know, that came from a giant, Brother James Patnard. And I mentioned earlier before you came in, Ashe, that he was monumental in getting the signatures, the petition signature signed for the Central Park brothers who were forcibly incarcerated, not just here in New York City, but he went upstate New York, even in South Carolina. You know, he was getting those signatures and made sure that they were turned into the city council and turned over to the controller. And so we forget about the soldiers who really did the work. And it's important that we talk about them. So without further ado, we got our history hitman in the building. We're not going to let y'all wait any longer, Sister Marie, because I don't want no smoke. We try to stay out of trouble on this program at all costs. So here we go, family. The history hitman himself, co-founder of 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement Who Care, Mr. Michael K. Graves. What's up, Big Mike? How you doing?
Yeah. Namaste, namaste.
You know, I love when you say namaste, because people, you know, they think of Buddhism when they hear that, not knowing the African tradition. So that is an African greeting. So you all should understand that. But we got the history hitman in here. And so we're going to let him do his thing. Yes, Sister Farnessa. She said, applause for the history hitman. That's fact. Right. We got him back. We give the people what they want. Ain't that an OJ song? Give the people what they want. Yeah. We don't want no smoke over here. And so, yes, Brother Peace, we do have to write our story about the Freedom Party because, you know, we made history, and that's very important. We got to tell a story, what happened, and how we got sabotaged, you know, by the governor and the Board of Elections. So I'm going to step off my soapbox for now. But Brother Big Mike, what you got in for us tonight?
Yeah, I want to thank you so much for the invite. Certainly, it's very important to acknowledge African Heritage Month, commonly called Black History Month. And I'm honored to be here tonight in front of this warrior class, and that you would honor me. I'm honored that you would just think of all the people you could have invited tonight, because there are many, but you chose to pick me. So I'm internally indebted to you for that. And certainly I really love the fact, because I got your text earlier about, you know, talk about some things in our history. And just before 8 o'clock, I said, wait, Keisha sent me a text earlier, and I reread it, and it said, just basically touch some things in history. And I started scribbling, and that's why I think I missed probably the first 15, 20 minutes. I started scribbling things down, and where I could only read it. Y'all couldn't even read this scribble, but I understand what I wrote to myself. And I would just like to extend. Okay. So what I did was, or what I would like to do is, while this is dedicated to two giants in our lives, Sister Keisha, certainly Dr. Ollie McLean, as well as our brother, Dr. Padno, James Padno. And some of you think he's not a doctor. He was a doctor with what he, in his discipline and the things that he did. And certainly that's why Noel always quotes him to this day, because he said the Community Cop Show is where truth and real talk occurs. And we never forgot that. So I would like to just add one other person to dedicate the show to. someone who's not a stranger to any of us, and that's to Dr. Leola Maddox. Would also like to dedicate the program to her. We would not be the people that we are in the same way that we are without the contribution made by our sister Leola Maddox, who cared and loved us so much that she put us out front with all the people that she could have called on a regular basis to have them present information in the form of a lecture and show clear examples of what we've accomplished and what we could be, and always made sure the children were there to see it. We would not be who we are had we not been pushed by her to deliver just desserts to our people. So whether it was the Freedom Party, whether it was lecturing, whether it was bringing up somebody like a Dick Gregory, she could have done that. She could have gotten the spotlight and did that, but she would say Keisha would do it, or I would do it, or others would do it. And so I think the contribution certainly of Dr. Ali McClain. Now, she was like you, Brother Tad. She didn't like people to say we were slaves. She would always correct them and say we were enslaved. In other words, that was outside of our control, that we never accepted the horrors of slavery and embellished it. You know, we were enslaved, not slaves. So you remind me of Dr. Ali McClain when you say that you don't like the term slave and slave masters and things like that. So certainly you are in line with a great kindred spirit that helped so many youth and Dr. Ali McClain. So while the night is dedicated to Dr. Ali McClain, as well as Brother James Padnor, I would just also add Sister Leola Maddox for all she did for us.
That's right. And Padnor, whenever we would take our trips out of state, Padnor was right at her side, being her assistant. Always right at her side. And we lost two giants for real. And again, here's a photo of Sister Dr., as my brother Mike Gray says, Leola Maddox. There she is in the center of Mike, Brother Monty, James Christian, Gordon Blake, and Michael K. Lloyd. So yes, definitely. And whenever, you know, she was such a humble woman. And you couldn't say no to her. You know, she put the heat on and said, you're going to run these forums. You're going to MC these forums. You know, I'll tell the real truth, because this is the truth over here. You know, it was Harold, James Bryson, Brother Mike, and Sister Leola. And they say, you're going to run these forums. So, you know.
I'm gonna tell on you tonight, Keisha. I'm gonna tell them something that they don't know about you. Sister Keisha used to come and would base her introductions strictly on memory and her information base. She was not at that time, I believe, doing the proper homework. So she would get up there and start talking, and after a while, her gun would be empty. And she would give me a sign to, like, you know, all right, now we're going to hear from Brother Michael. And I realized what she was doing. And I just looked at her and said, no. No, in other words, keep going. Put the pressure on her. Like, no, go ahead. You're going to have to draw from somewhere. You're going to have to draw it out. And I just sat there and looked at her. And Brother Harold tapped me and said, brother, go it up there. I said, no, sir. She got to learn. I bet you at that next week she had a laptop. She had a laptop with notes and everything in front of her. So, you know, we all pushed each other to be better. So I would like to start tonight just by, you know, as I said, I scribbled some things down that we need to consider. It is not nothing, no one incident might be considered critical, but I put down some things that we should all look at and ponder from the outset, you know, as we always opened and closed. You know, UAM, we always say we an African people. So I'll start tonight by saying we are an African people. And that what we have to always acknowledge that no matter where we are on this planet, we're an African people. And if we understand that, we can begin the process of embracing each other and uniting around certain commonalities, our common history, our common culture, and we have a common enemy and we have a common purpose. And as Marcus Garvey said, a common destiny. So with those things, I would just say, just remember we're an African people, and Kemet is not the only place in Africa where scholarship occurred. That was the centerpiece, the zenith of the entire Nile Valley that went literally halfway across the entire continent of Africa, and its zenith occurred, a culmination of so many various peoples with intellect. It became the centerpiece, you would say, is Kemet, Waset in other places, so we would better understand who we are. And as we went westward and the incursions of Arabs and the like, we just adjusted and made adjustments along the way, but we have some historical enemies, and maybe we might get into some of that. But just to say that when we got here to these shores, we had to deal with the horrors of enslavement, and certainly we know that there's a program coming on real soon on television about Lincoln the Liberator, and I always take a moment to always say that he did not liberate us. There was nothing in his history, past or present, as president, that would motivate him to free us. He was, as I mentioned, I think in the last lecture I did it, Professor Mackey's lecture group, he personally did not agree with slavery, personally. But that's a personal choice. It had nothing to do with his politics. On a personal level, he would not have ever started or in any way contributed to the Civil War. That was a personal position that he took. His best friend, Joshua Speed, and I won't go into Joshua Speed tonight, but his best friend's family were enslavers. That's what they were, and he had many other friends who were enslavers. He personally did not agree with it, the institution. I would just also say that if you remember the 1863 riots, right here in New York, Irish people killed every black person they could find in the streets of New York. And we were especially in Lower Manhattan, that was ours. And they went down there and killed every black person they could find because they were mad that they were being drafted into the Civil War, and that richer whites were able to buy their way out of military service. So we need to be mindful of that and be mindful of the fact that there has never been any love between Irish and blacks, even though they were enslaved, as y'all mentioned earlier, at one time. So let's remember the draft riots of '63. If you've never heard of it, take a minute, just write down draft riots of '63. Keep that in mind, and then research it later. We should also understand something like watch night. Watch night is now a perversion of what watch night used to be. Now, traditionally, when you go to church on New Year's Eve, you go to what is called a watch night service. And people always, no matter what church you go to, a little before 12 o'clock, before the clock strikes 12, people get on their knees or they get in whatever posture they utilize to humble themselves before the presence of God and start praying without cease until well after the new year has transpired. That is commonly done in the black church. But the history of it was to watch and wait with the anticipation that that next morning we would all be free, which did not happen. But there was an Emancipation Proclamation in its place. And as we well know now, it is nothing but a statement. It was not law. It was not binding. It had no teeth, no substance. It was just a speech. And that's all it was, because that very next morning, we were still enslaved for another 2 years, all the way until April of 65. So we went from January 1863 all the way until April of 1865, a 4-year war. And in the middle of that, there was what was called a watch night. So we need to remember that. Also, let's look at 1843. During the height of slavery, we organized. It was called the National Negro Convention of 1843. It was in Buffalo, New York, where the leading free blacks at that time convened. Now, these names, I'll call a few, not to waste too much time, but I'll call a few names so that we will kind of know and get a picture of who was there. When you mention Fred Douglass, Henry Highland Garnett, Charles Ray, William Brown, and so many others, these were all giants in their own right, scholars, freedom fighters, great orators. They were all there. And they had decided as a group that after several meetings and then the great speeches that occurred that evening, they decided to overwhelmingly form a group of over 50,000 black men who was going to head into the Deep South and free every black man, woman, and child in their path. And they were going to go all the way from the state of Washington, the city of Washington, and go into Maryland and start freeing everybody all the way until they would get all the way actually to Georgia. And the Deep South, of course, west of that, Louisiana, and places like that, Mississippi, all of that, that entire southern swing, southwest swing. So they had decided that, and unfortunately, the last speaker that night was Frederick Douglass. And he waxed poetically against that. And they came within one vote of voting to go, but Fred was so overwhelming. His oratory was extremely powerful. He's one of the greatest speakers of all time. If you look at some of his speeches, they are among the greatest ever. As a matter of fact, I'll say for the record that his July 4th speech might have been the greatest speech ever spoken by a black man or a white man, any man. That speech.
What were some of the things he mentioned in that speech?
In this speech, he talked about the horrors of slavery, because
right.
These white scholars and these white people who were at a very festive affair, it was a cookout.
Mm-hmm.
They read about slavery, but a lot of them never saw it. These were people who went to Yale, Harvard, Columbia University, the Ivy League schools, and these were people that never really went south. These were businessmen that made their money from Southern goods. They were a part of the agrarian as well as industrial aspects of the economic system. However, they really never saw what went on in Mississippi, Georgia, Alabama, places like that. So when he started talking about how slaves were being whipped, how they were being chained and brutalized, how, the ordeals that women, how a mistress, he just put it in a nicer way, instead of just saying that white men could outright rape them. But he basically laid it out in such a way that he said that you invited me here to your festive event. He said, how dare you think that I'm going to partake and eat and be merry with you while my brothers and sisters are in the South are dealing with the most brutal system of oppression ever known to man. So he went through and understood slavery in other forms, but he articulated that chattel slavery was the worst form of slavery ever. There were slave systems, in case somebody might not be familiar with that. There are some systems where you can have the title of slave, but then you can still go to school and become a scholar, and then you can eventually be a leader. You can grow out of your slavedom and reach the highest of heights. Well, not in chattel slavery. You were born a slave, you're gonna die a slave, and any children you produce will be in that same chattel slave system, which is the difference. So he pointed that out and made that crystal clear on just what the horrors look like, and said, and you pretend and you position yourself in the world as a civilized nation. He said, this what you call civilization would embarrass barbarians. He made that crystal clear that America is an embarrassment. Just the fact of you have schools, you have culture, you have music. It is nothing but a mask to hide the horrors of slavery. He said that it would embarrass a nation of barbarians. That's basically a part of his speech, and it has no equal, that speech. Certainly Henry Highland Garnet, a great orator in his own right, is comparable. But if I had to say the greatest orator probably of the 19th century, it would be Frederick Douglass. You know, even though Martin Delany and Henry Highland Garnet, there's no comparison as men, Fred can't compete with them. Fred Douglass himself said, I'm proud that I'm a man. He said, but Martin Delany is proud that he's a black man. And Martin Delany himself said, I'm the blackest man in America. He made that crystal clear. If you pressed him, he would have told you, I'm the blackest man on the planet. He would tell you that in a minute. And he was. So that's just things we need to know. And those that are listening, if you can just write the name down, look into Martin Delany later, because you have people now calling themselves, you know, all sorts of Pan-Africanists, the prince of this and the king of that and all this other stuff. The father of nationalism and Pan-Africanism is Martin Delany.
Real quick, brother.
I'm sorry, go ahead, brother.
Martin Delany, his education, what was his level of education and which school did he graduate?
Well, he was a Harvard-trained doctor.
Okay. Just to be
clear.
Know, all right, yes.
Okay.
And also, Brother Tag, you know, Abraham Lincoln went to Martin Delany to get black men and women to join in the Civil War fight.
That's right.
So that wouldn't have went down without Martin Delany.
Right.
And he
had all of his sons in the army. All of them.
That's right.
All three of them.
Right.
You know, and sometimes I just wanted Mike to touch on that part, because a lot of times people think a lot of our freedom fighters were just rabble rousers, but we want them to understand that they were highly educated, intelligent people who understood what it is that we're going against. Because
he was a medical doctor.
Yes, sir. All right. But continue, brother Mike.
Yeah, so you know, just want us to point that out. You know, so we had that level of scholarship and concern even in our worst days. That's why you won't catch me complaining about anything, because no matter how rough and tough it gets in our own struggles, it's better than the best day Frederick Douglass ever had. It's better than the best day Martin Delany or Henry Highland Garnet and them ever had. So we should not be complaining because we're standing on some broad shoulders. I mean, the best. And our history is so replete with great warriors, we don't have to just invent anything. We have so many great warriors and scholars that have done, you know, Dr. King is just one of thousands of people that we produce that would deserve a holiday. White folks, there are no white Dr. Kings. They've never produced in America anyway. I don't know what happened in Ireland when England had them enslaved for 8 centuries, but I can speak to there's never been a white Dr. King produced in America. You know, their best preachers observe white supremacy, and that's a religion. Just in case any of us are not clear, white supremacy is a religion. If religion is a strong belief in a system that you are guided by, then white supremacy is that system. And I'll give you as a matter of fact, I got a quote nearby from Pat Robertson, and he's the Southern Baptist. This is Pat Robertson on President Obama. May your rule be short. May your wife become husbandless. May your children become fatherless. Pat Robertson prayed to God about President Barack Hussein Obama. That's a white prayer. And so I'm saying that to say that they've never produced the type of leadership we have. William Monroe Trotter, one of the greatest. You talking about a scholar? He was the summa cum laude at Harvard. Now he was there the same time that W.E.B. was there. He was a great scholar. Now, oftentimes historians call W.E.B. Du Bois the scholar of scholars. Well, he wasn't the scholar of scholars at Harvard. William Monroe Trotter was. Now, William Monroe Trotter was one of the brothers that was so strong that when they formed the NAACP in 1909, he said, I will not be a part of any organization that's controlled by Jews. He said that publicly. And Ida B. Wells did too. Now, she did later participate, but she was clear that she was not going to be told what to do by Jews. Ida B. Wells made that crystal clear, and so did William Monroe Trotter. Now, it took them from 1909 to I think at least 1948 before they got a black executive director, which was Walter White. And looking at him physically, he looked like a white man, but I'll give him credit that he said he was a black man. So I'll give him that. And he was the one that gave us the story on what really happened, the details to Mary Turner. So that, you know, you have to give him. So I'm just saying that to point out some things. I think that when we think of elected officials, just moving real quickly so I can get to some of your questions. Adam Clayton Powell, hands down, the best black elected official we ever produced. He has no equal. No one is even close. If I had to pick a distant second, it would be Cynthia McKinney. There was no one prior to Adam as good. Hasn't been anyone since. So I'd say that Cynthia McKinney is the distant second. Now, Adam Clayton Powell, the reason why I bring him up is for 2 reasons. Not only the fact that he's the greatest we ever produced, but there's current talk right now about Marjorie Taylor Greene, the congresswoman from Georgia who talked about killing the squad. And the squad is, who are they? Rashida Tlaib, Ayanna Pressley, Iman Omar, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, you know, she has a picture of AR-15 talking about killing them, putting the bullet in their head. And they took her committee assignments the last week. They took all of her committee assignments away. Well, is there a precedent for this? Well, this happened in the 90th Congress to Adam Clayton Powell Jr., who in 1967, he was unseated by Congress. Why? They claim they you know, well, they were at their wits' end with Powell. Just to backtrack for a minute, Congressman Powell was he was the third congressman in modern history. I'm not talking about those in the radical Reconstruction. In modern history, the first was DePriest out of Illinois. The second one was Dawson, also out of Illinois. Now, DePriest was Republican because at that time in the 1930s, we were still voting Republican. So DePriest was first. Dawson, who came in about 6 weeks before Adam Clayton Powell, was second. And Adam Clayton Powell was third. And A. Philip Randolph was the one who was fighting to get the seat in Harlem, because with the pressure and the unrest from blacks in New York, they knew that we needed at least one federal officer in Congress. And they knew it was going to be Harlem. So A. Philip Randolph had positioned himself to get that seat. But anybody that knew Adam knew that that seat was made for him. He had to bogart his way into being a city council person. And city council person, now you run in that area. Well, before you had to run citywide. And to even get on the ballot, you had to deal with gangsters. I won't get into that conversation right now. That's for another time. But mobsters kind of controlled Gracie Mansion at that time. And you know, the Boss Tweed era and all of that. So you had to get alliances and you had to fight to even get on the ballot to run for the city council. And Powell was the first black city councilman. And then he later parlayed that and ran for Congress. Well, so in Congress, he did things like he found out that Dawson, who was prior to him, could not even go into the congressional dining area, did not use the congressional barber, so did not use the congressional gym. So he was a congressman who just sat in a seat on the floor, but did not enjoy the benefits of being in Congress. Well, Powell went to that diner with his secretaries. And after that, and his secretary was scared to death, and he told her she better sit down and eat. And she was scared to death. She was surrounded by the Eastlands and the Bilbos, all of these legendary segregationists who were all outright members of the White Citizens Council and the KKK and didn't hide it in them days. And so Powell was so enraged that Dawson was afraid that Powell called Harlem and told his people in the Harlem office to bring a busload of blacks to Washington, D.C. as his guests, and he brought them all into the congressional dining area. And that created a stir that you would never believe. You know, he had a busload, 30, 40 deep, of the blackest people he could find. They had bones in their noses. They had dashikis. They had everything under the sun. And he brought them in there and said, "These are my guests." And of course, the white aristocracy could not believe it. Senators and Congress people could not believe this boldness, this brashness from this freshman congressperson. They couldn't believe it. So in any event, after 20 some odd years, as I mentioned, in 67, they unseated him. It took Democrats as well as Republicans together, which later on happened to Cynthia McKinney also. And So I'm just saying that Congressman Powell was taken out. They refused to seat him, and it took 6 weeks, and then they had to have a special election over again. He had to run again in 6 weeks, which was nothing for Powell. He won again, and then he had to be seated, and by then his case went to the Supreme Court, and they said that the Congress acted unconstitutionally to remove him in the first place. And then later on, I won't go into it now, but at another time, it was the Gang of Four who white people gave the power to remove Powell and gave them basically Harlem, gave them control. And in case you want to know who those people are, that would be Percy Sutton, Basil Patterson, Charlie Rango, and Mayor David Dinkins, who became mayor later on. David Dinkins. Those are the four, the Gang of Four, that worked with the power system with the white power structure to remove Adam Clayton Powell. And they had inroads, unfortunately, because it was Malcolm that basically opened up doors in the Harlem community to Percy Sutton, who was his family's attorney. And Malcolm never saw that coming, that they would move on his good friend Adam Clayton Powell later, but he had no way of knowing that. But that's just a few tidbits. If you want me to keep going, I'll name a few more things quickly, and then I'll open up for questions. But I'll just say that just remember people like Latasha Holland, and I'm sure that the three of you know who Latasha Holland is, but in case anybody doesn't know, that was the 15-year-old sister who was shot in the back of the head, who they claim was stealing a small container of orange juice. She had paid for it, got into a physical altercation with the Korean store owner as she was walking out. She had paid for the orange juice. She was shot in the head, in the back of the head on her way out. And the Korean was found guilty of voluntary manslaughter, but the Judge Collins let her go after she was found guilty, and gave her probation as well as 400 hours of community service and a $500 fine. That's the value of a black life to that Judge Joyce Collins. So I'll stop there. And just remember 1909, of course, the NAACP was formed in 1962. LAPD moved on. The Nation of Islam marched number 27 in Los Angeles. You know, these are some key dates that we have to know. And of course, there was LAPD, the first one to develop an emergency service unit, a real paramilitary unit. And then NYPD was second, but LAPD was first in that. And now every police department has an emergency service unit, commonly called SWAT. But that developed first in LA, then New York, and then all the major cities where blacks were developed that specialized unit, you know, for guerrilla fighting and whatever type of internal methods that they use, they would, you know, employ. And of course, the brunt of that was felt by the Black Panther Party and others later on. So I'll stop there and open up for questions, but there are a lot of key dates in our history. Remember Camp Van Dorn. I think somebody earlier mentioned the Klan. Well, one of its initial founders and became the leader was Nathan Bedford Forrest, who at Camp Van Dorn, at Fort Pillow, killed 1,300 blacks who were captured during the Civil War. He was one of the top generals in the Confederacy, and he's acknowledged to this very day because the Edmund Pettus Bridge has his picture, his statue is there. So the very bridge that made John Lewis famous for crossing, and I don't know what he did after that, but just for taking a beating with many others, he parlayed that into a congressional seat, which he kept his entire adult life until death. He died in the seat. So just remember that there are a whole lot of other things, but we'll get into some things. And just remember things like the 4 black attorneys who were all disbarred or suspended in the Central Park jogger case. I'm mentioning things that's often not mentioned because if you watch the documentary on the Central Park jogger case, it's called the Central Park 5. That's a misnomer because it was 7. Technically, it was 9 who were originally prosecuted, but they dropped 2, which down to 7, and then 1 turned state, brought it to 6, and then Automatics was able to get 1 off. So ergo the 5, but it's really actually 7 if you really want to know. And the 4 black attorneys, Automatics, Robert Burns, Colin Moore, were all disbarred, and Joe Mack was suspended. A disbarment can last up to 7 years. A suspension is sort of like 6 and under. So that's with the black attorney. So we can open it up now. Just want to run down some dates or a few instances in the 19th century, 20th century, just so we be on firm footing.
Mike, I have a question real quick. I see in the news they were talking about the early release of Justin Volpe and the judge denied it. Could you touch on that real quick?
Yeah, Justin Volpe is trying to get out of jail using a COVID-19 defense. He's saying that he's in a jail system where it's COVID-19 is present. And I guess for some ungodly reason, he feels that if anybody should be released, it should be him. However, I guess he forgot that he took a stick and rammed it up a black man's behind and then lied and claimed that that injury was the result of homosexual activity. I guess he forgot that he had police officers hold him down and stand at the bathroom door in the 70 precinct so that he could take his stick, ram it up his behind, then take that same stick and then ram it in his mouth, breaking his teeth, Abner Louima's teeth. So he's trying to get an early release where he's one of the most vicious criminals that's in the jail system as we speak. And that only shows you that you don't go from being on patrol and then one day stick a stick up somebody's behind unless there has been a progression of things you were doing all along. So the beat downs that other people came forward and said that he did to them, all the abuse, obviously they were telling the truth, because you don't go from observing the law, observing people's constitutional rights, and then one day you go from 0 to 60 and ram a stick up somebody's behind. No, there's a progression of acts that precedes that.
Yes. Thank you, Brother Mike.
That's what's up. I got a question in the chat, and then we're going to move on to some rebellions and some critical inventions that, we as African people. But let's go to this question real quick. It says from Farnessa, she says, do you think that these discrimination laws that Biden is implementing with his executive orders to protect Asians will be used against blacks once they go into their nail shops and justify the Asians beating black people?
Well, I will just say here first locally, and then I'll go national. Locally here, can you please tell me the elected official that came to the aid of the black grandmother who was beaten on Nostrand Avenue and Church Avenue? What black elected official came? What black elected official came to the aid of Camila Brock, a young bank manager executive who was taken out of her late model BMW vehicle and arrested? And then when they found out that the car was hers, and she was a bank executive. They took her and put her into a psychiatric ward and pumped her full of psychotropic drugs for 8 days until her lawyer was able to gain her release. She was not in the commission of a crime. She was merely at a red light dancing in her car. James Brown or Michael Jackson might have been on the radio and she was listening to it. She was dancing in her car at a red light, and the police had the temerity to pull her over. And once they found that the car wasn't stolen, they couldn't arrest her. They couldn't lock her up. They had already arrested her. So they took her to a psychiatric ward and had drugs in her for 8 days. Now, when this became common knowledge, please name the black, and as this term they use so much, black and brown. What black and brown elected officials came to her aid?
None.
So I'm not gonna go straight at Biden first. I'm just saying what black elected officials stood up for Camila Brock? None. What Latinos came to her aid? None. So now we go to Biden. I don't expect nothing of Biden. Biden has always been a white supremacist of the highest order. He said during his days as a senator that he didn't want little white girls being around overgrown black men. Now, if they're all the same age, if they 8 or 10 or 12 and they all together in a school, what does he mean by overgrown? Is he saying oversexed? Is he talking about black men in large private areas? What is he talking about when he say overgrown? That's some fear factor stuff. When he's trying to say some poor little white girl's got to sit next to some black boys that want to rape her. So that's Joe Biden. So in terms of, do you believe that he's going to have an administration that's going to be fair and there's going to be fairness and equity? Well, what is in the Democratic platform? You look at the planks. There are no planks that says anything about blacks. There's immigration concerns as part of the Democratic platform. There's certainly all these gender concerns with respect to your gender, or more importantly than gender, your mindset. They got trans, some kind of fluid kind of stuff where you could be a man one day and a woman the next day. All this kind of stuff, so the fluidity is not even static. It just can change from day to day or hour to hour. On a rainy day, you one thing, and maybe when the sun shines, you get all flowery and turn into something else. So that's the kind of stuff that, that they're looking into. I think his agenda is to put white men back to work. So they are going to implement bridges, tunnels, highways, infrastructure concerns. They're going to do all of them things and put white men back to work. But is there going to be justice and equity? Well, why didn't he make a black person that has a strong civil rights history his AG? The Attorney General Merrick Garland is a white man that had 14 principal cases of black men unarmed, not in the commission of a crime, that were killed. In 10 of them, he favored the police officers, and he was lukewarm on another 2, and then kind of on the last 2, kind of did I guess what would be considered somewhat fair. But 10 out of 14, and then the other 4 real shaky on, does not sound like a civil rights advocate, somebody who's going to stand for your constitutional rights. Consequently, Merrick Garland, then under him is a white woman, and then under the white woman is an Indian woman. Now, I've never heard that term Southern Asian before, but they're using it a lot now because of the vice president. So, and then after that, it's a sister who's been in the civil rights movement for years. She's number 3. So in terms of answering our beloved sister Vanessa's question, she has a black woman that's third in line in the Justice Department after the Attorney General. She got two other women in front of her, a white woman and an Indian woman, and she's number 3. So to me, number 3 doesn't have clout over number 2 or number 1 or the Attorney General. She's a distant third. And I think that reflects Biden's philosophy with respect to black people's constitutional rights. We're third class.
Facts. You got another question, and this is from Brother Peace. He says, if you don't mind, could you please refresh the family on the Gina 6?
Okay, the Gina 6, this was a situation not unusual that happened in Louisiana, where they, in that high school, it's like a campus. It's sort of like a college campus. They have a large area, and at the lunch period on a particular day, where the blacks normally assembled under a tree, they had a noose there. And then, of course, you know that a noose, and we're not unfamiliar with what that represents. There's a whole history when you see a noose. When somebody puts a noose near your locker or wherever you sit down and, you know, habitate, you know, that's making a statement. So when that happened, a physical altercation did occur with a black group and a white group, and the white guy that pulled a shotgun on one of the brothers, I think it was the football player, he was able to take it right out of his hand. Of course, he was charged with confiscating the weapon. I guess it was some sort of theft of service charge or whatever against him. All 6 of these young men were prosecuted by the local prosecutor. He said he boasted in front of them that with the power of his pen, he can change their lives forever. It was a real bad injustice. But what happened out of that, Black America came from all over the country down to Gina, Louisiana, and was able to, didn't get them free. And of course, that brother who was a promising quarterback, his career was destroyed after that because he did jail time. But that galvanized the movement and sent a signal to white people that black people will get on a bus or a train and go to an area to defend people that they didn't even know when it's that such a gross injustice. But that town definitely did not arrest one white person for their transgressions. Only blacks were arrested. Only blacks' careers were destroyed. And the one white guy who they tried to charge the blacks with attempted murder on, he was beat up, but he recovered. You know, they got into a fight, and that guy caught a bad one. He was concussed. You know, you get hit in the head, you get concussed. And but he came out of that fine. And so out of that movement, and as I mentioned before, the last time I spoke at Mackey's lecture group, I mentioned how the black man who was the DJ up here in New York, Baysdow, am I saying his name right? Baysdow? He used to call himself the baddest man on radio.
Michael Baysden.
Michael Baysden. Yeah. Michael Baysden, who kind of took credit for it by saying that he was the drum that caused people to go down to Gina, Louisiana. When Reverend Sharpton heard him say that, Reverend Sharpton had him removed from radio here in New York in the tri-state area. There's no Michael Baysden anymore. When Rev heard him take credit for it, Rev, you know, controls the advertisement dollars because of his Madison Avenue initiative. You know, he took a page out of Jesse. Jesse's the Wall Street Project. So the advertisers that advertise on various programs, TV and radio. Rev got the inside track on all that, so he can prop you up like his buddy Errol Lewis, or he can take you out. You know, so he took out Michael Baisden, and there's no more Michael Baisden here in New York or the whole tri-state area, because Sharpton took him out because he took credit for getting people on the buses to go to Gina.
And at the time, I remember Michael Baisden, he kept it on the forefront a lot, because every day I would listen to him at work, and he always spoke about Gina 6 and reminded the people to galvanize and organize around that. So I guess Al Sharpton don't want nobody stealing his light. Because if I'm not mistaken, he did have Al Sharpton on a couple of times, you know, just the right person, you know, just to speak to it from that capacity. But Michael Baisden did remind the average Black person who listened to his radio show every day that this is going on and we can't forget that. You know,
that's right.
I didn't understand, but you just gave me the scoop on why Michael Baisden was gone, because it was an excellent show. I used to enjoy it. And what I did like that Michael Baisden did always say, he's not an expert. He's just bringing it out there so that the experts could be on notice and they can get involved.
That's also. Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Definitely. And also, again, James Padnar, who was down there front and center when this whole thing kicked off. James Padnar drove all the way down into Louisiana. And he had stopped his own research because he was in the middle of researching his own family history and found out that the NYPD shot his grandmother right between the eyes when she was 25 years of age. And we were in the library together, and he was looking through the reels to find news, articles about what happened to his grandmother. And he had got the call and he went straight to Louisiana. So again, folks behind the scenes who was there on the front line. Also, shout out to Eric Josie, who also gave us a report about the shenanigans that were going on down there.
In Sanford.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but we're going to switch it up now, family, because, yes, that's right, Sister Vanessa, Michael Baisden. But we're going to switch it up real quick because I want our people to get some information and history that they may not have known about. And I like to talk about rebellion. I like rebellion. That's it.
Good.
So I got a clip because, I want our people to do a little research on our sister, Queen Mother, Mwannam Kisi, out of Kenya, and the rebellion that she led. So we're going to play a little clip and then we'll take your questions and we'll converse about it between the four of us. So let me just bring this up real quick. Let's play this. I don't know, Stream, y'all got some new material now. So we're going to see how this works.
Region of East Africa tend to be from Ethiopia. Women rulers like the legendary Queen Gudi, or even Queen Makeda, whose account we know of via oral tradition. But today, I wanted to touch on a little-known queen from oral history that we hear very little about in the diaspora, Queen Mwannam Kisi, the ruler of Mombasa, located in today's southern Kenya. What up, African world? It's Team here, and welcome back to another video of African history, culture, and worldview. By supporting this channel on Patreon, you're helping in the creation of these videos and supporting this content. If you'd like full access to courses and sources, or you simply want to show your support, you may do so by clicking the Patreon link in the description box below. The rule of Queen Mwannam Kisi comes to us from oral Swahili tradition, and so facts about her reign or further details may be a little blurred because stories of her legend tend to outweigh everything else. Despite this, I wanted to speak about the oral tradition concerning this queen and bring her story more at the forefront. Queen Mwannam Kisi is of great importance to the Swahili community in Mombasa, Kenya. This is largely the case because a specific group within Mombasa claimed descent from her not only as a sign of their indigenous status, but as a sign of their elite status. Queen Mwannam is said to be the mother of the Thenashara Taifa, also known as the 12 Swahili tribes of Mombasa. The members of these groups greatly influenced the history of the East African coast. Even though they were a minority, they maintained a strong sense of identity, and today, the Thenashara Taifa are locally regarded as the true people of the city. This history of the Thenashara Taifa represent the strength and the success of the early state of Mombasa. Mombasa was a city that became a kind of refuge for displaced families of other Swahili towns, and by the 15th century, it became one of the most important trading centers along the East African coast. Over time, Mombasa became a thriving urban center that began catching the attention of foreigners. According to oral accounts, the original name of the city was called Kongowea or Kongwa, and then later Mvita. Mvita meaning place of war. This name exemplifies the history of Mombasa, which was constantly fought over. The oldest known written mention of Kongowea and the Queen is from a poem by Mombasa's most famous Swahili poet named Bwana Muyaka, who lived during the 19th century. Bwana no doubt took from earlier oral sources. Here's what he has to say. Kongowea belongs to Mwannam Kisi. Mvita is the ancient city. Do not exceed its bounds, but tread respectfully therein. Cast down your head, and do not look straight with your eyes wide open. It is an abyss of deep gloom. Even those who are well informed comprehend it not. This poem reflects the constant fighting over Mombasa and the foreigners who tried to take it. By claiming that Kongowea or Mvita belongs to Mwannam Kisi, Bwana is also hinting at the fact that she founded the city and created it into the first urban civilization. Local people still consider Kongowea, the city built by the Queen, to be the most ancient urban settlement and the center of power for the Thenashara Taifa. In many ways, oral tradition's insistence on remembering Queen Mwannam Kisi symbolizes how the local people try to keep their identity despite the intrusion of foreign influences and the erasure of local tradition. An example of this would be the Mombasa Chronicle, which narrates the Omani conquest of the coast. It has little to say about Kongowea or Queen Mwannam for that matter, but speaks mostly about the Shirazi dynasty. The fact that a 19th century Swahili poet attempts to invoke the name of Mwannam Kisi in one of his poems is very significant. It signals a response from local consciousness to the growing dominance of foreigners, such as the Portuguese and the Omani sultans. In a way, Queen Mwannam Kisi represented an inner strength the people thought they needed to pull from in order to deal with the stress that comes from a highly desirable city like Mombasa. As an African history enthusiast, it would have been nice to learn more about what the oral tradition has to say about Mwannam, like how she came to power or perhaps some of her policies in Kongowea. But unfortunately, all we have to go on is a legend, one that leaves us with more questions. Whatever the case may be, the effect she has on the Swahili people of Mombasa is no doubt profound. Well, I'm all out, guys. If you like these videos and want to help in its continued production, consider supporting.
Definitely, because when we hear rebellion, oftentimes, people talk about the Haitian Revolution, which was definitely monumental. But it's important, and I want our viewers to understand this, that we have been rebelling since the first ship landed on the shores of Africa. There have been rebellions. And so I would implore you, I try to give you the easiest way in to gaining some of this information so you can follow the home team on YouTube and on Patreon. I follow both because he just gives you snippets on YouTube. But if you follow him on Patreon, you can get written text and other information to help and guide you to this research. So, what are some of the rebellions, that stick out in you guys' mind that you think our people should know about? Let's start with you, Brother Tad.
Well, when you say rebellion, one of the things I was thinking about was the Bacon Rebellion. In the in its association with the creation of whiteness. You know, the guy Bacon, I forget what his first name was, but it was actually a political rebellion, but it dealt with free blacks as well as enslaved white folks. And with the rebellion, they, you know, that's when they created this colorful caste system. Because as we stated at the top of the show, you know, Europeans were enslaved also. So this is when they started separating the class based on race. Because during the rebellion, they didn't know who were free people and who were enslaved people. Because all black people weren't enslaved and all white people weren't free. So you're having this class system fight for political reasons. Because remember, slavery was called that peculiar institution because it was the catalyst for the finances for this country. So a lot of rebellions, a lot of things that was done to us was based on politics and law. Though slavery was immoral, it wasn't illegal. So a lot of things that were attached to slavery definitely dealt with law and politics. So with the Bacon Rebellion, after that, they had to decide, all right, we're going to create this new caste system where black people are inferior on this soil and white people are superior, regardless to their class in this society. Because we know Johann Friedrich Blumenbach and Karl Linnaeus really came up with you know, the classification of the races, you know, but then it was manifested and propagated here during that peculiar institution known as slavery, where they really started implementing it. And you can read, there's an article called The Creation of Whiteness, because as we were saying, and his brother Mike also implemented, you know, Irish really wasn't looked as white, or maybe it was you, Sister Keisha, but, you know, Irish and Italian, they weren't looked at as white because it was the people of Anglo-Saxon stock, which means people who are born of England and British ancestry, that was considered white, and everybody else was just less than, whether you were Black, Irish, Italian, Southern Jew, or whatever. You know, so when we talk about rebellions, I often, you know, that was just one of them that popped in my mind, because I always say white supremacy is a myth because they're not supreme, because if they were supreme, they wouldn't have to go so hard to lie to us and try to oppress us, you know, and deny our greatness, you know, because this is one of the things we have to remind our folks on how great we are as a people. Before we was transported here, and once we got here, we still demonstrated our African genius with all the inventions, as Ashe talked about Vivian Thomas. You know, we could talk about Charles Drew. We can talk about our inventions of the air conditioner. We can talk about just about everything that has gotten this country rich outside of slavery was still out of the mind of a Black person. So when we talk about rebellions, when we talk about Black and white, we got to remind white people, y'all wasn't loved very much either. Y'all were brought here against your will, just like some of us. But then somewhere along the line, you got duped and you bought into the lie that you are better than us. When deep in your heart, you know who we are. But I'm going to stop right there.
Yeah,
Brother Tag,
I would add to that.
Okay, Brother Mike.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, I would add to that certainly just looking at that footage, I would just say that we should not trivialize in any way when you hear a person says oral tradition, because oral tradition is just as sound as written tradition. The only difference is that someone wrote it down, you know, and it's been recorded in such a way that you can categorically go from point A to point B. But when we have in the griot tradition, we have those that can go from A to B to C all the way to Z in that oral tradition. So it doesn't delegitimize in any way because something is oral tradition. You know, Ted, as you well know, you can speak to someone in Ghana about oral tradition and they could tell you about the golden stool and that history. It might not have been documented written history, but they can go through the whole story on how that came to be, or how kente cloth came to be, that's all oral tradition, and it does not delegitimize it in any way. But I would say that the classic, well, we don't have to mention it tonight because everybody is somewhat familiar with it, would be the Haitian Revolution. Might be the greatest revolution of note and probably the most important one to us. But certainly all of the African nations, and Haiti is one of them. But certainly the African nations freeing themselves of the yoke of European oppression and colonization is noteworthy. Whether it's Kenya, which you were just showing footage on, or whether it's Ghana and so many other countries, you know, Guinea and so many other, Sequoia, you know, so many others that had to free itself from the bondage of colonialism. They're all equally important, and one is standing on the other one's shoulders. But I would just say, especially in the Western Hemisphere, we would have to look at Haiti as the one, you know, because it happened to what was considered at that day the greatest European military power, which was the French at that time. So I would say for Africans to free Haiti and then to continue that to go into what is now called the Dominican Republic and free them, and then continue traveling all the way as far as Louisiana and other places, freeing Black folks along the way. I'd say that the most important one, and certainly probably the most dramatic and fierce battle, I'd put Haiti up there with any other revolution that we could think of.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. I would definitely agree with that, brother Mike. You know, the Haiti insurrection was definitely one of the most successful that we had. But, you know, one of the ones that we don't talk about a lot, and it's also one of my favorites, happened right here in New York. And I'm talking about the 1712 slave rebellion. We don't talk about that one enough. You know, that happened right here in the streets that we walk up and down all the time, like right in Manhattan. You know, 1712, some slaves, some Africans, enslaved Africans, my forte, not slaves. But you know what was the great thing? One of the reasons that I like that particular rebellion, and it's very interesting because not enough of our brothers and sisters know about this one, especially our religious brothers and sisters. But that particular slave rebellion, like I said, happened right here in New York. That was instigated by continental Africans that were enslaved, that were freshly blown over to New York, to America, and were mingling with the African Americans, the ones that were born here and, you know, just been here for longer. They were mingling with them. And the Africans from the continent instigated it by using the traditional religion and practices that Africans had on the continent. So they telling the African Americans that this is not your tradition. You have ancient African religions. So that war, that rebellion was actually a war on Christians. And our Christian brothers and sisters, not to knock y'all, if that's what you do, that's what you do, as long as you Black power first. But our Christian brothers and sisters don't even know the history. And I used to be one of them. I used to be one of them sitting there thinking that, you know, this was the end all be all when it comes to African religion for Black people. But all you got to do, you don't got to believe Ashe or Tad or Mike or Keisha. Study, look this up, family. The slave rebellion or enslaved rebellion of 1712 in New York. And it'll tell you that it was a war on Christianity by African people. So the African brothers and sisters was telling the African Americans, look, this is not your religion. You got African practices. African Americans got hyped up. You know what they did? The African brothers and sisters and the African Americans that were enslaved. Matter of fact, you know, another reason this is a special thing to me, my birthday is April 5th. This rebellion happened on April 6th, 1712. So, you know, I was coming out the right time, baby. They actually burned a house down of these colonists, the colonists that were in New York. They burned the house down. When the white people, the colonists, woke up, it happened in the middle of the night. When they woke up, saw the house burning down, they fled outside of the house. Who was standing outside of the house? 23 black brothers and sisters ready to put in work. So that slave rebellion, like I said, it started as a war on Christianity, but at the end of it, they killed, I believe it was 9 white people, and they injured, seriously harmed a bunch of others. But at the end, 9 white people died. Unfortunately, a lot of us died. And as a result of this particular rebellion, they actually enforced some of the harshest slave codes that we have. That's where, like, some of the slave codes that were put into play, they turned them up. They turned it up a notch. They made it even harder because of this particular rebellion that happened right here in New York City, family. So, and I know some of it, I think if you study the history, they said they were sweeping up Africans looking for brothers and sisters after this rebellion on Canal Street, right downtown Manhattan. So when you go to Canal Street, we talked about on our show previously, I brought up how they have one of the bloodiest blocks. I think they call it the Bloody Angle or Bloody Triangle. They tell you about the history of the Asians when they were out there murdering themselves in the Asian War, but they don't tell you about the history of Canal Street and other parts of Manhattan where we had our 1712 rebellion fighting back right here in New York City. So that's one of the things that we have to, make sure that we are reading up, studying our history, and regurgitating this information, because not enough of us know that, especially if our brothers and sisters that are Christians right now, if they looked at that rebellion up, I'm telling you, that's another sign right there that, look, we were something greater before the good ship Jesus came and we were converted into all of these religions, family. So that's a powerful one for me right there. Sister Keisha?
It's funny you came with that because that was next on my list. 1712. So you can tell the crew is always in sync. We always in sync. But also, family, research where you are, the cities and the states in which you reside. Research, and I guarantee you'll find many events in African history that took place. I just want to move on quickly because we're running out of time. Most modern conveniences that we have today, Black people invented them. Most modern conveniences, and they never get credit for it. Of course, like the brother said, the best thing the European ever invented was the patent office, because they stole everything. So from the air conditioner to the almanac, Benjamin Banneker. And you should really study the history of Benjamin Banneker and his design of the city of DC and the alcoholic dope fiend that, they wanted to give the credit to.
Yeah, Elephant.
That's right, Elephant. That's right. Read that history and study the history of the Dogon, because he was able to do things. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, just want to say, when you're talking about inventions, you have to remember Garrett Augustus Morgan. You have to remember him, because had he not invented the gas mask, well, it's called a gas now, it was a hood at that time, but it's been now, commonly called the gas mask. Just think about, first they had in 1916, they had a major construction accident, and the workers were underground and smoke filled and gases coming out. He was able to pass down his mask to them and save firefighters and other construction workers' lives. And then when the city of Cleveland gave out awards, they didn't even acknowledge him. And he saved all their lives, the people who were underground and could not get out and had to survive on his mask. And then think about things as like the three-way traffic signal switch that Morgan invented. you know, that to this very day is being utilized. So just imagine over 100-something years ago, 105 years ago, you invent something that hasn't even been perfected to this day.
That's right.
You know, you still go.
He made a walkie-talkie also. If I'm not mistaken, I believe he also
yes, and he also even made a component on a sewing machine that switch, that zigzag switch that you see all these clothes got that zigzag in it. He invented that and put it on a manual sewing machine in that day. So, you know, incredible. You know, that brother was incredible. So when we think of the Banekers and we think of the Morgans and we think of the George Washington Carver and people like that, we don't take a back seat to any white person anywhere with respect to intellect and inventions. Now, you know, when you can do all these things and you being systematically oppressed, not allowed to have a formal education, and you are under the gun, every time we step out of our house, we're playing beat the clock. We don't have the luxury and the leisure of free thought and movement. We're constantly under the gun. Can you imagine in Morgan's time, you made a gas mask? I mean, what would even make you even think about making that? Something that saved, do you know how many lives that saved in World War I? His gas mask? When they went into the European theater and was fighting and Europeans started using chemical agents, saved thousands of American soldiers were saved with his gas mask. And like I said, when that great accident happened in Cleveland, the first responders were awarded. He was not even acknowledged. And they were using his invention to save lives. So I agree with you. When you come to the Banekers of the world, the Charles Drews and so many others, I mean, like you said, the patents that Thomas Edison, you know, who probably had more patents than anybody, he either took them or he bought them from the people who invented them. You know, so it's just limitless what we were able to produce under the circumstances that would destroy anyone else's ability to even think, to even produce music and art. And the only American art form ever invented here in North America was jazz and the blues. And that was done by our people. So we don't have to look low and have our head down around anybody, because we've been that type. And just speaking of that, just want to give big props to Cicely Tyson, a sister that refused to take her clothes off. Beautiful black chocolate sister. And she just was just so dignified and so statesmanlike in her approach to a money-making system that I'm sure that she was never rich. She might have been comfortable, but she didn't make a whole lot of money. And I got to be thankful to the Spikes of the world, and even what's the guy named to do Medea? He put on a few movies. Tyler Perry and a few others that at least when she was at an advanced age, she was still able to work and at least make some money. But just want to give her credit so much for just being so dignified.
Yes, indeed. And one of my favorite movies that she played in with Sammy Davis Jr. is A Man Called Adam.
Yes, got it. Yeah.
Yes,
no doubt.
One of my favorite movies.
I'll have to watch that. A Man Called Adam?
Yes.
A Man Called Adam. Mm-hmm. It's coming on again on Turner. You know, you catch it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I just wanted to add real quick to Mike's point, in addition, you know, with Thomas Edison and the patents, I think it's important that our audience know that there was a point in time during our sojourn here in North America that we weren't even allowed to file for patents. we had to turn them over to white folks. We couldn't even get paid off our inventions unless that person gave us a few dollars, you know, for the invention, you know. And even
that's what I said when I said, that's what I meant when I said they took them.
Oh, yes.
They didn't always even pay for them. They took them.
Yeah, because I think it's important that, you know, one thing I teach young people is that when we were brought here, they didn't kidnap slaves. You know, they brought highly intelligent thinking Africans here. And I always ask the children, if you want to build a new nation, do you bring idiots or do you bring geniuses? They said, you bring geniuses. I said, exactly. They went to Africa and took the best and brightest minds.
It's called the brain drain.
Okay. The brain drain?
Brain drain.
Yeah. Yeah.
You take away the best from your enemy, now you're made better, and you leave them void.
Right. Right. And I like that term, the brain drain, because it's important that our children know that we come from greatness, because with this system still being in place, they'll always show us in a lower level in society, whether here or abroad. They always show us at the bottom of the rungs and always try to deny our greatness. And as Dr. Amos Wilson always said, our children are born natural geniuses. You know, they had to dumb our children down through this miseducation system just so that other children could compete, because scientifically it's been proven that our children developed a lot faster. You know, but that's a whole nother conversation within itself.
Amos Wilson and Francis Cress Welsing were two of the best minds we've ever had.
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Sister Marie said one of her favorite Cicely Tyson movies was the Marva Collins story, when she played the school teacher. But, you know, that's one of the reasons why I have a love for, or not a love, but an appreciation for classic film. Because in classic cinematography, watching, even if you look at the Audrey Hepburn movies, the Humphrey Bogart movies, and Cary Grant and whatever, Lana Turner movies, they gave you a clear picture of what the United States was all about and what the United States wants to maintain. And white dominance.
Yes.
Definitely. So a lot of those classic films, and as I told Brother Mike before, one of my favorite of all times is Oscar Micheaux. His silent films, if you want to look at what the Harlem Renaissance was really about, what our people looked like during the Reconstruction era, if you will, when they were building these Black Wall Streets all over the place. Oscar Micheaux put that in film so brilliantly, and he also made wonderful films about Black folks protecting themselves, if you will. There was a film, the name escapes me right now, but it starred James Earl Jones's father. And it's a powerful, powerful film where you had Caucasian landlords who were trying to steal everything that, you know, Black folks were building, businesses and the like. And you saw these Black men and women conspire together to get rid of them in Harlem and in other places. So if you can, you know, not a lot of people like silent film. You have to have an affection for it. But if you can catch some, and not all of his films were silent films, but if you can catch some of Oscar Micheaux's films to give you an insight, because I always wanted to know, you know, what did the streets of Harlem look like when my great-grandmother was alive? You know, and he puts all of that in film so you can see exactly, you know, what was taking place at that time. So that's just didn't mean to digress, but that's my love for classic film.
Since we share films, also, because Brother Mike Grazer was talking earlier about Adam Clayton Powell. There's an amazing, amazing documentary on Adam Clayton Powell. I think it's self-titled, but I know it's actually free on YouTube. So if you just, right after this, if you're watching us on YouTube right now, or if you're watching us Facebook, wherever you're watching, just go on YouTube, type in Rev Adam Clayton Powell, REV Adam Clayton Powell. It's an amazing documentary. It's about an hour long with nothing but footage of him throughout. It tells about his whole history from the beginning, his family life, to how he came into politics, and to how he had his exit, gracefully or ungracefully, from politics as well. And a nice, sweet surprise in there is John Henry Clark is actually in the documentary giving commentary. So make sure y'all check that out. It's called Reverend Adam Clayton. Actually, it's just Rev. Just type on YouTube, Rev Adam Clayton Powell. You're going to see a picture of him lighting up a cigar. It's an amazing documentary. I'm about to watch it again because it was real good.
And believe me, he used to challenge slumlords all the time. People would come to Adam Clayton Powell. See, we have to remember, long before he was a congressman, long before he was a city council person, he was the assistant pastor under his father. And they would come to him and tell him that the slumlords are either throwing him out or they charging him an excessive amount, and they don't have running water, they don't have heat, or the locks are broken, or every kind of problem under the sun. And he would go to these Jewish gangsters, Irish gangsters, and tell them, you're not going to charge my people, and they don't have adequate housing. Step right to him. And this is long before he was a congressperson. He was doing that as a assistant pastor, kicking butt all over Harlem. He wasn't playing. He was the one that negotiated with Irish gangsters and told them that they had to let some blacks drive buses in Harlem. He said, I'm tired of it. I'm not going to keep seeing Irish and Italian guys driving these buses. I'm demanding that I see some black ones. And that was long before he was a congressman. He was no joke. That's why they show you Bishop Chicken Wing or Pork Chop. They show you them. They won't give you the example of what Adam Clayton Powell, what a real pastor is. And that's why nobody talks about William Augustus Jones, a great black man, strong, because you don't want to see that example. They just have people that perform on Sundays now in church. And it's unfortunate the way they perverted. And it's important to say that during African Heritage Month, that the black church is totally different now than it was a century ago, or more importantly, a century and a half ago. Totally different than it is now. Now it's entertainment, it's wearing fly clothes, making all these elegant speeches. No, it wasn't that before. It was the base for organizing. 150 years ago. It's been perverted. The same way watch night has been perverted, the service now has been perverted. I mean, I've always come on and talk about people like Dr. Sweet. He had the brothers from his church in 1925 come and have a brotherhood meeting at his church because them white folks was coming to his house to kill him. And he had the brotherhood over there. And yes, the brotherhood had 45s and rifles. That was the church. This church now is totally different. They got churches telling you to turn in your stuff now. That wasn't back then. 150 years ago, no black clergyman would tell you to turn in your stuff.
That's right. Just like earlier I said too, even with Negro History Week, the church was very instrumental in creating a momentum, like you said, it was the base, man. And that's where you would go and get the scoop, or people was in there working in the church, So, I mean, and it's amazing too, because I mean, we really need to take the church back. You know what I'm saying? And like I said earlier, if you're a Christian, you need to be a revolutionary Christian because we need the church back. One of the things we need is the school system to educate ourselves. If we're not going to use theirs, we got to have our own school system and educate ourselves. And we need the church back, whether you're religious or not. I remember, and I know we over time, so I'm going to keep it short, but I remember I went to Atlanta, I think it was about 3-4 years ago. And I saw a black church. And I ain't talking about these churches like the Baptist churches. It said black church and it had an ankh on it. And this church meet every week, every Sunday, religiously. And you go in there and they talking black power. They talking African religion. They talking, like all of our heroes and sheroes, they giving lectures and things of that nature, and it was called the Black Church. So shout out to them in Atlanta. I don't know the exact name, but we got to start doing that again, man. These lecture series, Anthony Mackie, UAM, you know, you talked about Leota Maddox earlier. I remember when I graduated out of the content community and into activism, the first thing that really sparked the fire was UAM for me, because prior to that, I was going to the debates in the conscious, quote unquote, community. But when I started going to UAM, and this thing was free, I didn't have to pay to get in to buy a ticket like the conscious debates. And I started seeing people you can actually talk to that's about doing something in action, and so many lecturers coming in, you know, and this is not for YouTube and things of that nature. That made me be like, man, this is where the real revolution, this is where the real workers are, the real warriors. And I remember seeing Leota Maddox right on the side, right by the books. I remember seeing her. So that was very instrumental to me in my development. You know what I'm saying? But we really, if we're going to do this church thing, let's do it the right way. Like Mike said, quit the entertainment. You know, some of these churches, I see they got some churches with people my age too. They go out in Gucci suits and Louis Vuitton suits, and they fresh, and it just looks so cool. It looks fun. Like, yeah, I want to go to church, you know? But it's all entertainment. What are you doing this for, man? Let's reclaim the whatever power that we can and whatever tools that we have to make it powerful. We got to reclaim these things, man. So, you know, it's real important. But I know we cutting short. Brother Mike, you have any last comments you want to say, or how we can support you, things of that nature, before we give our closing statements?
Yeah, I would say that first of all,
Mike, hold on a second, Mike. Before we do that, again, thanks to everybody in the chat. We tried to get as much as we can up on there, but you know, when
you froze,
Can
Keisha.
you move, Sister Keisha? All right. And in the spirit of the Black Church, I just definitely want to shout out Minister Vern and people at
when
the African
you
Village,
talk
Sister
about
Tom and the rest. You know, so shout out to the family over there. Sister Keisha, you have froze. You have froze a little bit. Yeah.
I see every time it get hot, here they go messing with my Wi-Fi. But anyway, but yes, I was saying that when Ashe mentioned, you know, oftentimes, a lot of these Christian denomination churches are fashion shows. They negate the memory of the African Methodist Church and what it was formed for and about. And so we lose that. How can you wear a shoe and not know about Jan Matziger? You know, every major shoe brand owes Jan Matziger. He's the one who made it possible for the mass production of footwear. And you walk around with your favorite shoes on, and if it wasn't for this black man, you wouldn't have it. You know, the curtain rod, the egg beater, the doorknob. I can go on and on. Lewis Latimer with the light bulb, and on and on and on. And that myth, it is a myth about Benjamin Franklin and his lightning rod expansion of, you know, developing light, if you will. But it was an enslaved African who led Mr. Franklin. Yeah, he's the one who did the work. But you don't hear about this and you don't know about this until you start actually reading and visiting a lot of these museums, because they do know our history better than we know it oftentimes. And they're not afraid to put it out there because they know a lot of folks will not look for it. But we have to continue to look for it. You know, you have your keys in your pocket, a keychain. You know, we invented every modern convenience just about that man takes advantage of today. We invented it. The lawn sprinkler. Some of y'all got houses in your lawn. You be out there pouring buckets of water. If our brother didn't invent it, the hairbrush, the comb, the soap dish, the folding bed, the chair, a furniture chase. As Mike said, the gas mask. I can go on and on. The lunchbox, the mailbox. You get your mail because you understand what I'm saying?
Human.
So, exactly, Shane.
Let's go bigger than that. You know?
And I'm a cook. I like to cook. I like to get busy in this kitchen. And thank you to the brother who invented, the mixer, the egg batter, the biscuit cutter. All of these inventions that we take for granted today. The toilet, that's right, Sister Marie. You wouldn't even be able to take a dump, if it wasn't for us. And,
barbecue.
The barbecue. That's right. I think I posted a picture earlier this week of how it's funny how, they tell us now during this pandemic that you have to wash your hands and sanitize and all this whole kind of stuff. Who are you to tell us when we taught you to bathe?
Right. And this remember what they was doing the whole time prior to the pandemic.
Hello. I mean, so come on.
That was a given.
Come on now. So yeah, get your cataract surgeries. That's a Black woman right there. So we have to, all of us have computers. Well, the floppy disk and the drive, all of that was Black. The cell phone, Black. And so as Mike said, we can definitely hold our heads up high, because not only did we help this country sustain itself and maintain itself, we were in the front, the back, and the side of development of modern conveniences. So
we built the White House.
And the White House. Come on, brother Tad. All of it.
We made chitlins.
What'd you say?
On that note, we want to thank y'all for coming out. God bless you tonight.
Funky thing. But yeah, so again, family, we ran out of time. We went overtime tonight because the program just kept going and going. And we want to thank again our brother, our comrade. He is our big brother, the history hitman. And it's always a pleasure to have you with us. Again, the people always want you, so we give the people what they want. Your closing comments, Brother Mike.
Yeah, I would like to usher my condolences to our brother Ray, the director of Dr. William Mackey Lecture Group. My condolences for him losing his brother Clayton. Everyone spoke so highly of him, family and friends and the like, all consistently talked about his big heart. And so our condolences, certainly on behalf of your program and 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement. We join you in your sorrow for losing your brother. And it was a great collection of people that spoke very highly of him. And certainly a tribute to Dr. Ali McLean, as well as to our brother, Dr. James Padnor, as well as our beloved sister that we will never forget, Dr. Leola Maddox, who did so much for our people and kept that school, the only Black sleepaway summer camp, kept that alive for so long that Sister Keisha was able to fine-tune her skills in teaching up there. So many of us who came up, and it was incredible. It's never been replicated, and we probably going to have to redo it again at some point. But just want to thank them so much being examples for us, because we would not be who we are if they were not who they were. And we always have to acknowledge we're standing on somebody's shoulders. And even though I might be critical of, let's say, the NAACP, I would never dismiss the contributions they made with Charles Hamilton Houston, as well as Thurgood Marshall, in fighting for our constitutional rights, for a certain level of equity in our lives. So I thank them for the bridges that they brought us across, and so many other organizations. I would just hope that these civil rights movements remember their own history and continue that, as opposed to kowtowing now to corporations in America. So I wish you all good tidings, and you have a great audience, and certainly would love for the time to come around where they could actually verbalize and ask questions, and we could all have a good time with that. I'm sure that'll be forthcoming, but I thank you all again for honoring me, for allowing me to speak during African Heritage Month, which is very important to me.
Well, family, we definitely appreciate our brother Mike coming through. We appreciate you for joining us and hanging there with us as we run into overtime. So hopefully you were inspired tonight by what you heard. Now it's your turn to go out and inspire others. So y'all stay up, stay blessed, and stay true. And remember, no matter how hard things may seem right now, there's always better days ahead. Brother Ashe.
Yeah, family. Yo, this was an amazing, powerful, jam-packed show. So much information. Please make sure y'all share the link. Direct message. Send this link to somebody. Share it on your page. Send it in a message. Send it in an email. We want to make sure that all the information that Brother Mike has brought forth tonight and the dope conversation that we had gets in front of some new eyes. We want to grow this platform and create more warriors, family. It's not enough Black media that's really on this warriorhood, unapologetic, the way we trying to give it to y'all, family. So please make sure y'all support, share this link. And remember, it was a lot of great movies and documentaries and books and things of that nature that we discussed tonight. I hope y'all had it written down. You know, you have it in your notes. Do your history every week. You know, we only do this once a week. All the information we give out, we want y'all to study it, add to it, bring it back to us. Maybe it's some things we don't know about, but this is Black History Month, and we know we Black 24/7, 365. But at least, if you not, at least be Black for these 28 days, family. Please try. And let's make sure we study in our history, family. I'm gonna leave y'all with one of my favorite quotes from Carter G. Woodson, the person responsible, like we said, for Black History Month. When you control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. Very easy, very simple, family. So let's make sure we know that the battlefield is where we stand. It's always going to be. And true courage is knowing how to suffer, family. It's your brother Ashe SJ signing out. Sister Keisha.
As my brother said, thank you all for tuning in every week. Continue to share this information because oftentimes platforms like Facebook and YouTube play around with our algorithms, play around with the numbers because we bring in so much information to the people. Again, shout out to you, Brother Peace. You know you always on the call, always on the check-in, and we definitely appreciate you. Like I said, it was so much that I didn't even get a chance to go in on, so we got to continue this next week. Of course, this is African History Month, so we got a lot to discuss because I wanted to touch on also why our people in the country of Mexico are facing so much hell right now, are really outcasts, and I wanted to discuss that rebellion that took place there. But again, we'll deal with that next week. We out of time. I'm tired. I gotta go to sleep. A big day tomorrow. I got another platform. Shout out to Brother Yomi. I will be on his platform tomorrow. We will be discussing the film about Fred Hampton. So I'm excited about that. So again, shout out to our ancestor, Dr. Ollie McLean, James Patnoff, and Leola Maddox, who had so much trust in me. Didn't know me from a hole in the head when I first started coming to UAM. And my first sleepaway with her and the children in upstate New York, she said, I don't know what you did with them girls in them woods, but you make sure you here every summer to do it. And she had saw something in the young women that she had never witnessed before. And the following summer, I came up to do my normal, counsel, being a counselor up there. And she literally turned over the keys to me. And she said, my job is to plan the events. Your job is to run this sleepaway camp. And for her to put that trust in me, I'm getting choked up. It was a lot. It was an honor. And so let us not forget those who came before us. We stand on the shoulders of great ones, even our immediate ancestors. Remember them. Call their names and talk to them on a daily and watch how they guide you to the light. So we out, y'all. I talked enough. Y'all have a good night. Salute.